I think it's the biggest game in Jaguars regular season history. We'll discuss that a little bit and talk about more of the ramifications from Saturday's game in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars. You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up? What's happening, good people? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. I have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. Make sure you put Locked On in all caps in the game. Not that far away, a few more days till the Jaguars play the hated Tennessee Titans. I know we've had a lot go on this week with Damar Hamlin still in the hospital. Everyone is rooting and pulling for them. I think we're going to give the fans a little bit of a preview and start moving towards a game that ultimately has to be played. And while we'll keep Mr. Hamlin on our mind, just approach this game with as much positivity and enthusiasm as we can because they don't come very often. We appreciate you making Locked On Jaguars your first listen because it's your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. Pardon me also for my voice. I know it's probably not coming across as strong as it usually does, but we're working on that too. So I'm glad to have you here with us. I want to talk about what this game means for the franchise compared to some of the other big regular season games, not playoff games, but regular season games that have happened here in Jacksonville, and measure it. Also, we'll get into segment 3. We'll talk about Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence and their true impact on this franchise, and whether it's hit you or not, exactly how big those two are when it comes to this franchise and what they're going to bring to it. We don't have to look at it in retrospect or behind, go back and look at it from a historical perspective because it's right here in your face. Those two guys have really meant an awful lot to this franchise so far, and it's only going to get better from here on out. So we'll make sure that we get into all of that. But right now, do we remember the Titans? Yeah, we remember. We remember losing to the Titans in 1999 3 times, and those are our only 3 losses. The chance the Jaguars had to go to the Super Bowl. Of course, we have not forgotten. But the goal is to make sure that the Titans remember this weekend. I want the Titans to remember the Jaguars this weekend. And I want them to remember what happens in this game because I fully expect Jacksonville to be dominant and to win this game. And you guys know I don't make clickbait predictions. I don't make these. I don't make these. Give this analysis to try to shock anyone. When I tell you something, it's exactly why. It's exactly what I feel, and I'll even explain to you why I feel that way. I think they are going to absolutely dominate. I think it's one of those games the Jaguars fans 20 years from now will look back and say, at what point did this franchise actually take a turn? I thought they took a turn when they got Doug Peterson, but it doesn't show up for a while. So this is where it shows up. We're going to look back throughout history and we're going to say, this was the seminal moment. This is the moment that this franchise changed. This is the moment that we all knew was for real, that this was the moment that we all can recognize that things just absolutely flipped for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's funny that you're living in that moment right now. It is, because normally when you're in these moments, you don't realize that you're in these moments, right? in those moments. You just don't realize it. You're just going through the motions and you're just a Jaguar fan and you're just doing everything that fans are supposed to do. I do, however, feel like this is a little bit different. I think the tailgates, I know the BCB has a huge tailgate that they're doing. This is going to be the biggest tailgate atmosphere. This is going to be uh, monumental. This is going to be Florida, Georgia in those proportions. How much partying is going to go on Saturday? I'm wondering how early everyone's going to get to the stadium. It has to be. The game starts at 8. Was it 1, 2 o'clock? I hope the Jaguar fans aren't. Well, I ain't gonna say I hope they aren't hammered by the time the game starts, because the game's gonna happen. They ain't like the players gonna get drunk just because the fans are, right? But I really, I'm not gonna be around, but I want to see and take in what the Jaguar fans look like going in and what they look like coming out of that stadium. There were some games, some regular season games in the past where it was festive because of what we knew the game was going to mean when you went into the game. It was also festive because of what happened during those games. So I'm going to talk about maybe 5 or 6 times during the game when the atmosphere, regular season game only, was off the charts, on fleek, whatever these young people say. I'm going to talk about those games and I'm going to rank where this one ranks pregame. Now, whether it ends up being your favorite Jaguar game, now, so far it's going to be the biggest game, but whether it ends up being your favorite Jaguar game of all time kind of has a lot to do with the outcome and what actually goes on and happens in the game on Saturday. So I'll talk about that. Let's talk about some of the biggest games in franchise history. We'll do that. We'll make sure we do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars, man. I'm telling you, I know you guys are super, super excited. I am also super excited and cannot wait till this game gets started. I want to let you know that today's show is sponsored by Ultimate Pro Football GM. Now, this game is very, very special. It's a very good game, and you're going to absolutely love it. And I'm geeked out by a new partner and sponsor of today's show, the mobile game Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? I know that answer is yes, because I have interacted with most of you. Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. Y'all want to be armchair GMs? This is your chance to do it. It doesn't take all day and doesn't take all year. You can run through a season in a matter of a couple of days. All this in a challenging, realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. So if you're going to be on a plane like me in a couple of days, what do you think I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be in airplane mode, but I'm going to be playing this game offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. All right, so here's what you have to do. Locked On Jaguars listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. Make sure you put that in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps, so make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM, start your dynasty today. And you guys start here with me every single day on Locked On Jaguars because it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Daily Locked On Jaguars podcast. I want to go through some games from the past and talk about this game and the significance of this game in terms of where it ranks as far as regular season games. I'm going to bear the lead. It ranks number 1. This is number 1 mainly because it's for a playoff. It's for the AFC South. We've had games that have come down to the last game of the year where they have been for a playoff spot. The Morton Anderson game, for instance. This is a little bit different. This one is different because the Jaguars have been through so much since those glory days. They have been through so much. They've been one of the worst franchises in the league. They've picked number one overall twice in a row. They have actually been through a lot. And it's a turning point that they go from worst to the playoffs, and it happened in the span of one season with a new coach. That's why I think this one's super, super important. I'll even say this, and I'm not trying to pour water on our fire, but even if they don't win, they've had a successful season this year. And I know we don't believe in moral victories. We talk about that all the time, but we do believe in this is house money that they're playing with. I believe this is house money that they're playing with. I believe what they're doing right now is it presented itself. There's a situation that presented itself, and they're going to take advantage of it. Why not? I think they're going to be super, super relaxed. But there were some other games. The Morton Anderson game is the one I just reminded you of. Morton Anderson, Hall of Fame kicker, one of the greatest kickers of all time, missed a chip shot field goal. He doinked it off of the upright, and the Jaguars went to the playoffs. A few years back, I think it was 2018, when the Jaguars had lost in the AFC Championship game the previous season to Tom Brady and the Patriots. Well, Tom Brady and the Patriots came walking up in Jacksonville. I was going to say TIA Bank, but I think the stadium was called something else back then. And they walked out with a lump on their head. The Jaguars won. I remember Keelan Cole catching a one-handed pass down the sideline. The Jaguars beat them pretty good, and that was the game that it was vindication a little bit because the Jags thought they got hosed in the championship game with the Miles Jack wasn't down. Didn't make up for not having a chance to go to the Super Bowl, but it did. It did, at least for a day or two, allow us to put a knot on Tom Brady's noggin. So that game felt good. The Seattle game, when dude from the Seahawks got into it on the field and thought he was going to just walk off the field. And I don't encourage fans to throw things, but I think fans threw things. And brother turned around and thought he wanted to walk up in the stands, and he almost caught those hands from Duval, a whole bunch of them. They weren't scared one bit, by the way. I don't care how big he was. They stood there like, I wish you would come across that bar. That's that moment. And if you ever see the picture of it, was Jacksonville in a nutshell. The Miami Monday night game in 1999, the year that they ended up beating the Dolphins 62-7 in the playoffs. So people might not remember, earlier that year, they had a Monday night game, and those two teams were two of the best teams in the league. It was Dan Marino and Jimmy Johnson and Jason Taylor. That's the game where Tony Baselli, the change of quarters, they were changing ends, told Jason Taylor, come on, come down here. Jason Taylor's a Hall of Famer, but they're both Hall of Famer. He said, come on, let me come down here. Let me finish whooping on you. Come on. And Keenan McCardell caught a bomb for Mark Brunell late in that game to seal it. And I was in the end zone, and I'll never forget, he was throwing that pass. It was coming right towards me. And that might have been the loudest, one of the 3 or 4 loudest moments I've ever heard in that stadium. So all of those games were big. That Monday night game signaled the arrival of the Jaguars. The Seattle game, the Jaguars were showing that they were for real. The Tom Brady New England game was a little bit of a revenge, even though revenge wasn't as sweet as the actual game that they had lost in the championship before, in the Morton Anderson game, because it started a magical run that allowed the Jaguars to get into the playoffs and make a run that they ended up going to Buffalo and winning, ended up going to Denver and winning, and then they lost a close game once again in the AFC Championship to the Patriots. So those are some of the Monday night games or some of the regular season games that I remember, but none are bigger than this. This game is huge. And there are 2 people responsible for making sure that the Jaguars are in this position. One is head coach Doug Peterson. The other is Trevor Lawrence. Now, Trevor Lawrence came 2 years ago and played for an awful coach in Urban Meyer. Doug Peterson, however, came this past season and has really, really, really stabilized this team. I'll tell you more about that and why I give them so much credit. I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Let me tell you, as a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have those skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. Now, it's worked out for me as a manager. It's also worked out for my daughter, who's now in management, but she was on the other side where she went on LinkedIn, saw the job profile while she was in the military. 2 weeks later, when she was discharged from the military, she immediately got hired, and she's been with that company. And now she is posting LinkedIn Jobs to try and recruit people. So that's how this works. LinkedIn Jobs help you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and the 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified applicants. Here's what you do, man. If you own a business, a small business, and you need to get linked up, make sure you post your job on LinkedIn.com because it helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. You can post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/locked on NFL, one word. That's LinkedIn.com/locked on NFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Time flies, everything applies here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm your host, Tony Wiggins, your daily host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. And we thank you for making us your first listen. Make sure you make your second listen to Locked On Sports Today show, hosted by my friend Peter Bukowski. It's the top stories in all the world of sports with use of the local experts telling you exactly what's going on and what's going down. It's 30 minutes or less every single day. It's a nice jolt in the morning. It's like drinking a real good glass, a cup of coffee or an espresso. So make sure you check that out. Remember, it is free on all platforms, and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. How are we in this position? We're in this position because of Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. I don't know or care to try to see which one of those is the most valuable, but I do think they run hand in hand. Trevor Lawrence came in a year early. After the initial enthusiasm, it went away because he had a terrible coach in Urban Meyer, and everyone knew that things needed to change if Trevor was going to ever have the impact on this city that was promised or that should have been had. In comes Doug Peterson, who had won a Super Bowl not even 5 years earlier with the Philadelphia Eagles. And he comes in and he brings in a staff. And all that staff was able to do is solidify and insulate Trevor Lawrence, allow Trevor Lawrence to grow up as a quarterback on the field, a quarterback off the field with his teammates, and now develop into what is one of the finer quarterbacks in the National Football League. I can't tell you how much I know that a decade or 15 years from now, folks are going to look back at Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence as one of those dynamo or dynamic duo type quarterback coach relationships. I can't be omniscient and tell you how many Super Bowls are going to be attached to both of them, but I will tell you this. They're going to give you a legitimate shot every single year to be very, very competitive and possibly be standing up on podiums, because that's what good coaches and that's what good quarterbacks do when they are put together. So Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence are two people that will end up, in my opinion, having their name plastered all over the stadium and getting statues put up because of what will start. It's actually already started, but what will manifest itself in front of everybody on Saturday, that this is going to be the beginning, not a flash in the pan, not a lucky year, not where things just happen to come together. I think they're going to put people on notice around the NFL that this is going to be the absolute beginning of a long time headache, toothache, ingrown toenail for a lot of people, especially those teams in the AFC South. Don't take for granted 1 second that you have all bear witness to the infancy of what I believe is going to be a growth spurt for this franchise that is going to be remembered by your grandchildren. That's just the way I feel. I think Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence, they happen to also both be really, really nice people who work hard, who are likable, who they seem to both read the room very well. I think it was a perfect match. It actually was the perfect match to go out and bring Doug Peterson. And I'm not going to look back and say, man, I wish we could have done this a year earlier. Everything happens on its own time and for due reason. But this is why I'm so confident they're going to win the game, by the way. It's because of those two. I just don't feel like they're going to lose this game with what it means for the city and the franchise, and with the fact that they just have the better team. I think they just have the absolute better team. So kudos to Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. We give them a shout out at the end of this segment. Here's what we talked about. We talked about some of the games throughout history that this game either parallels or sits top of on its own as the most important game that the Jaguars will possibly ever play here. We discussed that we aren't going to forget the Titans. In fact, we're going to remember them more or less. We're going to have the Titans remember what happens this weekend because it's going to be an absolute change. This is the change game. This is where everything flips, in my opinion. This is where we take an exit off of one road and we go on to something else. And that something else is going to last for at least a decade. Make sure you pick it up and join me tomorrow for a crossover edition with Tyler Rowland. I know y'all been waiting for Tyler Rowland. Y'all going to get off my little bro now. My little bro, he's just doing his job for his. But we're going to beat up on him a little bit. So Tyler Rowland will join us for a crossover here on Locked On Jaguars tomorrow. And I'm trying to, me and a certain person are trying to have our schedules lined up to be able to talk about this game this weekend. I promise you, if I don't get, I'm going to go and handcuff him and tie him up and make him do the show next week. But we both have been going back and forth, and we've been trying to make it work with our respective schedules. I'm still not going to tell you who it is, but hopefully. Well, I might be able to have him on Friday show. We'll never know until we actually do it. But when it does, you'll see me come on here with a big smile on my face, and I think you guys will be smiling too. Make sure you tune in to Locked On Jaguars tomorrow as we do the crossover, like I said. But until then, make sure y'all take care of each other and get ready for the big game this weekend between Jacksonville and Tennessee.